Hello, welcome to my channel. So it's time. It's time to start working on the top of the motor, and we may do some custom stuff. I'm not sure, but for now, it's time to make some changes to the head gaskets. The head gaskets are bad, so that's what we will be doing on this video. I was going to just start working on it like this. However, I'm a little worried about the fenders, so I'll be removing the fenders and also the hood. I think it'll be beneficial if I remove that. I want as much working space as possible on top of the, I want to have a free open area. So hair's all pulled back. Let's get started. Did you see that? 10-10, almost died. Anyhow, the fenders are off. She looks super weird to me without fenders, so I'm definitely not ever going to experiment a fenderless 31, at least with my car. The reason I did this removal of the fenders is so that I can access things a little bit easier. So one, I'll need to crank or spin the crank so that I can set it to top dead center. Also, and the fenders were kind of in the way here. So now I have all this clearance. I can also release the hose clamps down there, and it should dump all the antifreeze down to the floor, not coming super high. So hopefully that will be a little bit easier by not having the fenders in the way. I can actually reach that without having to lift the car up. But then one of the other things, I am checking things as I go. And by that I mean, for example, these wheels, to me, they're really narrow. I think I've said this in previous videos, but I would need to figure out what to do with these so they're kind of out of the way. But the front wheel, I definitely would want it to come in more and possibly come out maybe just like half, I don't know, like maybe 2 or 3 centimeters out. But I definitely need it to go in. I think this car could comfortably hold in 8.5 up in the front, maybe even a 9 up in the front. And right now I think it's like on a 6.5. So this just isn't gonna work for me. I don't know if you can see the oil pan down there. It's super low. Let me see here. I don't know how well that will show it there. You can kind of see the drain bolt. So that oil pan is probably around 7 or 8 centimeters off the ground. The chassis is much higher, and so is that the cross member that goes through there, or whatever that front brace that comes down that holds the front suspension setup. So I'm a little concerned that oil pan's just so low. It's actually the lowest part of the car. Yeah, so overall, if I would have started with this car from scratch, I definitely would not have built it or designed it this way. Definitely not with a frame like that. I would have figured something out to get that engine to not be so low. Maybe even possibly a different engine. So yeah, I don't know, a lot to think about, but for the most part, I do just want to get it driving and running and everything like that. So the heavy modifications and, depending on how far I will go with this car, that will be left to be determined later on. For now, we are at a point where we can start removing engine components. So that's what I will be doing here shortly. But I think the first thing I want to do is drain that coolant. All right, so right now, the first thing I've done is I've drained the antifreeze. I've just released this hose here, and then that dumped all the antifreeze down to the bottom. I'm hoping that takes care of most of it. I know there will probably be some still in the block, but hopefully this car has been sitting still for such a long time that some of that has circulated out, but one can only hope. Next thing is I need to probably release this. It's the only thing that I can remove without messing the timing yet. So messing with the timing. Or maybe I should set it to top dead center first. So this is the adjuster bolt, or the tensioner technically, and this is the bracket that would apply the tension based on this getting moved around. However, this is like at its lowest position, so it's going to be a little interesting on how to remove that. Here is just pretty much removing this bolt and then this clip back here, and then the I hope I didn't call this a starter. The alternator will come out. I've removed it, it's right over here. And then one thing I noticed is that when I unplugged this was connected with this. So these two were together. This though was loose. And the only place I can think of that fits under here, because the alternator doesn't have anything there, is right there like that. So I hope I don't blow something up when I go to start this car, but I think this just goes in there like that, because it's got black stuff on it, see? And then there's black stuff on top right there. So that's, oh my goodness, this car. I'm going to have to make sure I'm gonna use this video when I'm assembling everything back, because so much of this is like strange to me. Like I would not guess that this spring needs to be here. You know, if I was to remove it, I wouldn't have any idea where it needs to go back. All right, the wind's going super crazy and it's actually coming right at my garage door. So hopefully you can hear me just fine. I removed the bracket that was holding the alternator and I've placed it right there. I've also taken the air filter off. These hoses that were, let me go around. So I have these heater hoses here, and you may not, but one of them was connected here, the other one was connected to the pump. So I've gone ahead and just removed those. And right now, these bolts were kind of concerning. They're going into the head of the engine, and they were super rusted. So I'm hoping that that's not like a huge issue. You can kind of see the rust that poured out right there. So it's a little alarming, but we'll see. Anyhow, I'm going to be moving on, but I still need to set it top dead center. I said I was going to do that first, and I still haven't done it, so I need to do that. So one of the worst things that could have happened, or I don't know if it's one of the worst things, but it's definitely something that's just going to ruin my, I don't know how long this is going to delay me. As I was turning the engine over to top dead center, the crank bolt stripped. So now I have to drill and tap that and maybe install helicoils. I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out if that'll be strong enough to be able to retorque that bolt down. I really doubt that I will have to go to the extent of having to replace the crank, but I'm having to remove everything off the front. So I removed the bar that went through here that held the lights up, the fans off. I'm in the process of trying to take this guy off so I can access from here through there and be able to reach in there. All right, so I've removed the radiator. One light's right there, the other one's over here. There's the cooling fan. I removed the transmission cooler. And what else did I remove? Oh yeah, the pulley that drives this one here. So I just need to get the balancer out of there, and then I can move into tapping that crankshaft. All right, so I was able to do it, and I simply ran the same size tap into here and ran it all the way through. I had a little more space back there. I got a longer bolt, and luckily the original bolt didn't go all the way through. They had like about I don't know, like maybe 2 centimeters, I want to say. Let's say 1.5 centimeters left before it touched the back. And so I just got a bolt that was about, I would say, 1 centimeter longer. And I ran it through, and I had a washer just in case to make sure it didn't go all the way back, but I tested it just like this. I hand tightened it to see if it would push this pulley back, and it held this pulley in place. And so yeah, I lucked out, rethreading it, and running the tap through and then going just a little bit deeper so that this bolt would grab was enough. And so I'm never going to touch this bolt ever again. If something happens and I need to mess with this bolt, I will do an engine swap before I touch this bolt ever again. So anyhow, back to getting it to top dead center. I found out that you're not supposed to actually move it from this bolt. This isn't a Honda, Nissan, or a Toyota. So I guess they make a special tool that goes on these 3 bolts here, and then it'll have an extension out, and that's what you turn. By the way, that gets torqued to 60 foot-pounds, and that should tell you that this is not built to do crazy things. A Honda or like my Toyota, for example, they get, like my Toyota for sure, that one gets torqued to 180 foot-pounds if I remember right. So the 60 foot-pounds is barely holding this thing in place. So these are pressed in, so there's absolutely no reason. Like, this could probably do well without anything here. So I've had to do a little bit of rigging to turn the engine over somewhat. Down here is, I don't want to take it all the way out, but down there's a regular pulley puller. And this one, I had an OEM one and that did not fit in here, it was too long. But this one from, I think it's Harbor Freight, this one fits just fine. So I've screwed it down inside there. I have some bolts coming backwards, and then I made this little pipe here. So basically I stick something here on the ends, and whatever, it might be like a crowbar, whatever, and then I spin it around. Now on this other side, right here, I have this balloon tied up, and this balloon is tied up into a fitting in there. And I'll kind of show you what that fitting looks like afterwards. But as it comes up on the compression stroke, this balloon inflates. And I'll kind of show that here in just one sec. So there you go. You can kind of see it getting bigger. This is the fitting here. Let me get the balloon off. So basically it's a plug that would go into, any air tool, and then the fitting that would be for the tool to check compression. So I'm moving on to removing the carburetor. So I've already disconnected this line, which is this fat one here that was just right there. This small one coming off of the distributor just went down here. And then I have to figure out how to remove this line, and hopefully it doesn't get in the way. Maybe I can move it to the side. And then this one, I gotta remove that, the fuel. And on this side, let me go around. On this side, I have to remove all the cables and then this bracket here. I'm going to leave the distributor for last because I do have to mark the distributor so that I get it back. I'm going to try to just get it back in the exact same area that it's in right now. That way I don't have to mess with the timing. So I actually removed the thermostat housing, and I was kind of looking at the gaskets. They keep using whatever this adhesive is, and that eats up the gasket and then causes a leak. So this car was leaking because of whatever that is, not because the gaskets failed. So if they use that on everything, then that's the reason why everything's like falling apart. But I'm probably going to end up getting a new thermostat anyway, and I was planning on getting a new gasket. So you want to run a tap through all of these holes, unless it's like new, then, or you know, you pull out the bolts and they're super clean. I don't think that that's necessary, but I'm actually, I don't know why I said you guys, like do whatever you wish, but I am running the taps through to get all the gunk out of here, and make sure that the threads are good so I don't strip anything. The bolts will be getting their threads cleaned up as well. If you've seen my previous videos, like, I'm very OCD about the hardware matching. Look at this one compared to this one, and it's only 4 nuts. I mean, when you buy this stuff, it comes with the right hardware. Like, what are you doing? Like, eating it or something? Anyway, this car, oh my god. Anyway, I'm going to match the nut, but the carburetor's able to be pulled out. It's always a good idea to mark your stuff. I usually, especially if it's a motor that I'm not like familiar with, I will mark things like the cables, if there are any, just because when you're having to reassemble, it's easier than having to, you know, either look up the firing order, or, you know, if you forgot something, having to look that over. So marking as much as you can usually is very can't even talk, very beneficial. All right, distributor cap is off, so I'm going to be removing the distributor. I did mark, I put like a mark there, a mark at the tip of the, probably shouldn't have done that, but there's a mark there as well. And down here, there was already a mark down here at the bottom, and that one's lined up with the bolt hole down here. I was a little concerned about this mark right here. I do believe that that was done by the previous person that worked on this car, and the reason for it is because maybe that's actually true TDC. So I re-rotated the engine and set it to that mark. I'm hoping that that is actually TDC, just because this mark was here already, the one that's right there. So to me, I think someone had already, like, you know, set some timing corrections on this, and but I won't know until I remove the head, so I'm just doing this for now. But that bolt under there is what needs to come off, and then I can pull the distributor out. All right, the distributor is out, so got to get to the manifold and remove that. And there's a bunch of bolts like this. I'm going to also be cleaning the threads and cleaning like the thread slots inside the heads as well. All right, next is the valve covers. Something interesting, look here, nothing. Look at this one. This one, super tight, super tight. This one, I can't grab it right now, but I was spinning it with my finger. This one's super tight. Other side, super tight. This one, loose with my finger. Tight, tight. Loose with my finger. Oh man, whoever worked on this car, this is the reason why I'm going through this and as much as I can on this car. I decided to remove the headers, and you know, I had to kind of take them apart from the down pipe. It's just not, it wasn't going to happen. Just loosening them and pulling them out. The dipstick's in the way over here. On the other side, I couldn't, oh, and then the steering column line or whatever, I can't even think what it's called right now, that gets in the way. So to get the space, they just had to come off. Removing these bad boys now. Helpful tips for you that maybe you don't know. I don't know if you're trying to do this or whatnot, but just some quick information for you on this. When you remove the spark plugs, number them so you know where they came out of. When you remove these, make sure that you exactly how they're coming out, put them somewhere, because that's how they need to go in. You can't flip these around. You can't flip them, like you can't take this one and put it over there, and like However you pull these out, make sure that's how they go back in. Okay, so this is what I've got set up. They make a tool for this, but there's no point in that when you have a cardboard box. So there's a number that I've written there. That is the piston. And then here we have 2, so 2, 4, 6, 8, and then 1, 3, 5, 7, so on and so forth. And so, for example, this one would go here on the motor, and then this one here would go here, and the push rods are just in the center, but obviously they have no threads, so I know they would actually go like that, not like this. I'm just using the push rod to hold everything kind of together. But now let's remove the heads. One little piece of advice, I've seen this in plenty of YouTube videos. People will take off, like they will work on one bolt and just pull it completely out, move on to the next one, pull it completely out. That's not how you should do this. You should follow the pattern of how it was torqued, but in reverse. And then you want to only break them loose. So you just do like a quarter turn or something like that, maybe half a turn, and then go through all of them. And then afterwards start removing them. You don't want to just remove one bolt at a time. You will run the risk of putting a bunch of stress on the remaining bolt, and you could strip your threads. I might have said a little too aggressive on the turns. I said make half a turn when you're releasing, and actually you just want to break it loose. So I actually did a quarter or maybe even less of a turn, just knowing that it would just broke loose. And I went through the, you know, the reverse cycle of how they're torqued on, or the sequence that they're torqued on. And then after that, I still went a second time and then just did only a quarter on each one, a quarter turn, because just in case I missed one. Obviously, I'm being very paranoid about not stripping a bolt down there. All right, so heads are off. Now I have a bit of cleaning to do. I've kind of been putting some shorts up on, I don't know if you're familiar with shorts, but they're the really small, quick short videos on here, and just kind of recording some of the process as I go, because this is taking very long. Eventually I will produce the complete video, but now there's another issue that I've come across. If we look here, there's pitting everywhere. Well, not necessarily everywhere, but in very crucial spots, like right there where it's like inside the cylinder area, firing area. So that's an issue. A gasket won't seal that. I have to send this to a machine shop. The other head, I haven't gotten to it yet, but I'm sure it's in the same condition. I'm trying not to get discouraged. You know, I really, you know, growing up in a quick background, growing up in the schools that I went to and stuff, around the time when I grew up, a lot of people really talked up the American cars, the 1960s and so on and so forth. I was the outcast. I liked Japanese cars like your Honda Civics. I liked the road course racing. Everyone liked quarter mile racing at the time. And as I go through this, I'm failing to see what the hype is about this. And maybe I just got a car that a really poor engine builder did, but there's just, I am seconds away from considering a Japanese engine swap on this, and just taking the body off and throwing the body on a tube chassis and just going completely a different route. However, I want to complete a classic car. Yes, it's Frankenstein, but it has classic older parts. So let's see. Okay, I've actually returned from the machine shop. I dropped off the heads, and I also dropped off the intake manifold. So the intake manifold obviously was in the same condition. Water got in there. The intake manifold's aluminum. They didn't ground that either. So it just started eating up the aluminum underneath there as well. So it is going to take about 3 days for those to be ready. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just clean the block. The block still has a little bit of residue left. And then we're just going to call this the video where I disassemble the top end When I go back to install everything, I'll make a separate video. It's just going to take quite a bit of waiting time, and I don't really have anything else to work on this car right now except for that. So let's just pick up on the next video, and I'll put it together then. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching, and catch you on the next one.